All right, so today we are beginning a 6-week course in angelic magic. And it's a beginning angel magic class. And angel magic, we'll go into what that means, but it's a study that is many lifetimes long, and you will never learn it all. But there are some very advanced types of angelic magic that we will not even broach. So if you're hoping that we were going to be doing the Enochian type magic in this course, that is not what we're doing. We are not doing that at all. But let's just talk for a moment about what we are on about today. So angels are a big deal. They have been for a while. I mean, they've been a big deal for many centuries, but in pop culture, angels are kind of a big deal. And they are sort of a new age phenomenon. And as a result, there's a lot of stuff that's discussed about angels, and there's all this channeled material, and people are channeling Michael and Gabriel, and some of it may be quite good, I don't know, but that's definitely not what we're into at all here. I'm not using, in fact, there's absolutely nothing that I'm teaching in this course that I have developed myself, or that I'm not using anything that that I received from my own work in this angel magic. I'm actually only giving you that which is traditional, that which has been taught to me, and that which I've worked with for many years. So there's absolutely no original material being taught here, but a lot of what we're doing you may have never been exposed to before, because for some reason this type of work is still rather obscure. As big and popular as angels are, the kind of work we're doing is not as big of a deal as one would expect. So, in all throughout time, angels have existed. Angels and this type of work transcends all religion, and it's kind of a place where very disparate belief systems seem to be able to have some meeting ground. So witches and Catholics and Muslims and Jews, they all can kind of come together in some way or another with the type of work that we are beginning to discuss today. Although the magical aspect of it is still somewhat forbidden by many of the major religions, especially the patriarchal type religions. But angels have existed since before anything else. The angelic tradition states that the creator is what we would call God and Goddess. Prior to any form being created, the creator, which is unknowable, thought in order to create. And the thought forms, the waves of that thought, were what created the angelic realm. And the angels are actually responsible, according to tradition, for the creation. So it's not like God, made man, and God made a bird, and God made this, and God made that. No, from this tradition, it's more that the intention, that the thought vibration, the desire to create universes, etc., caused the angelic beings to come into existence, and each angelic ray, if you will, is responsible for its own part in the creative aspect. And there is evidence of this type of thinking throughout all religions. It's where polytheism really comes from, is the idea that there is not one God, but at the same time there is one God. So the Godhead, if you will, which is unknowable and unconceivable, in deciding to create, caused the spectrum of the angelic levels and beings to happen, so that each level of creation and each aspect of creation is under the auspices of a different angelic energy. And that's where that's the traditional thought behind that. So regardless of what your own personal star shadow, you can't tell if you're connected. I wonder if you can't hear anything. Let's just fix this before we go on. Okay. So, if you're not on Chrome, it's really hard to use your computer. So hopefully you're on Chrome. Okay. So if you're having trouble technically, what you need to do is shut down and reconnect. Usually that'll fix it. Okay, so anyway, so here we have this basic hierarchy of angelic realities, and we're not going to go too heavily into the different theories behind that because each world religion has its own sort of spin on that. But that's a basic idea. The idea is that there's most of the world religions, especially the pagan traditional religions, have this belief in three worlds, and that's usually the celestial world and Middle Earth and the underworld, and that's trying to depict the different levels of being, so that there's the level in the realms of the stars. Then there's the level of life that is on a planet like this, like on an Earth, and then there's the dense dark levels of Earth that are either on faraway planets that are away from the sun, or the idea of the mineral kingdom, etc., that is very dense and very slow vibration. But almost all of this, the different angelic traditions will come from the perspective that all these life forms are connected. So from the purely mineral up to the celestial are on a continuum of life force, and that each of everything that exists corresponds to a different ray.
Ariel, I don't know if you can hear me, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
I can hear you.
We cannot get any sound here, and we're on 3 different computers.
Okay, so let me restart the call. So what we're going to be talking about is just one part of that in the 6 weeks. We're not going to be going into all of the different machinations of the different choirs of angels in the Hebraic in Christian traditions and all of that. We are going to be dealing with one aspect of it, and that aspect is called the teaching angels. The teaching angels, and those are the angels that we are working with, and those are the angels that are connected with the planetary spheres. So it's a type of planetary magic that we're working. It's a very ancient planetary magic that we're working. And the first thing that you're going to want to be able to do is know what your sun sign is, your natal sun sign is, and you're going to want to know what your natal moon sign is. So if you don't know what those are, you can get a free chart online. There's a lot of different places to get that, and I give you one example in the handout that is available, and you can download that now if you want to. In fact, if you have the link from the email, the corrected link that was sent today and a few days ago, you may want to go ahead and download that handout so that you can follow along with some of the stuff that we're talking about, because it does get this particular class is a lot different than most of the other classes that many of you have taken with me. On one level, it's because there's a lot more technical stuff. It's more technical than many of the other classes. And also, like I said before, the fact that I haven't written any of it. I'm just actually doing my best to give you the system as I have been taught it and as I have been practicing it for many years now. I was very reluctant to actually teach this class, but I was compelled and prodded to do so over a long period of time, and so finally I went ahead and accepted the challenge. So hopefully I do a good enough job with it, because it's I don't know who could ever consider themselves an expert in this particular topic, and I definitely am not an expert, but I do have a lot of experience in it. So anyway, so when you get that, when you know what your sun sign and your moon sign are, we're going to be working with your moon sign mostly, especially this first lesson, this first week. And we'll talk about more and more of that in just a few moments. So in this magic, we work a lot with the phases of the moon, as I always do. But we're somewhat more strict with it in the angelic magic. We're strict about the phases of the moon. And so there will be some information that you receive from these lessons that you may not be able to put into action right away until the following lunar phase. So that's okay. The other thing that you're going to find is very different about this class versus what you might be used to with the way I normally teach is that I'm not giving you as much homework, because the lessons themselves are homework. You are going to be everything in the lesson you're expected to do. So the angels seem to not care for people to take information and hoard it. So if you're one of those people that are taking this class because you want something else for your notebooks so that you can file it away because you want to just hoard information and not use it, you may not want to be in this class because they don't go for that. You want to use this. You want to actually do what I tell you to do, and you want to do it and practice it. And practice it until you get a clear sense of whether this is a system that you respond to or not. But don't just take the magic and put it in a notebook because you want another notch under your belt or something, because that does not fly with these powers. They don't like it. Oh, Star Shadow, you made it. I see you. Okay, so all right. So let's just get into it here. A lot of what we talk about in this course deals with, even though the powers and the angels are beyond time and space, they are depicted in every religion. We are dealing with the Hebraic names of the angels. We are dealing with that because that's the tradition that kept it alive and intact. However, it's not a Jewish system. In fact, the Judaic laws kind of sometimes even prohibit some of what we talk about. Okay, same with even though there's a lot of the Christian tradition deals with some of these angels, but they prohibit the magic that we deal with as well. So it's really an angelic tradition. It's a specific angelic tradition, but we are dealing with the Hebraic names of the angels, and there are some operations which do use the Hebrew language and the Hebrew characters, but it's not all of it. It's just some of it, because that is what we've been given. We try to stay as true to the source material as we possibly can in this class, and most people that practice this path do that as well. I'm hoping everybody can still hear me. I'm sure have heard by now if you couldn't. All right, so in regards to that, because of the keepers of this tradition, especially during all of those years of persecution, a lot of what was maintained in this tradition and not destroyed were kept by what are now known as the Gnostics. Okay, so they tended to be what people might call esoteric Christianity, but a lot of the information that we have were kept by the Gnostics. A lot of the angelic lore can be found in the different apocrypha. Most of the angels that we work with are not even mentioned in the Bible, but a lot of those biblical texts that were excluded from the Bible are great source material for what we're dealing with, even though we recognize that these beings are more ancient than that. As a result of that, a lot of what we do has come to be known as the Pauline art, Pauline, Pauline art, and that is named after Paul, the Apostle Paul, because of his supposed ability as an adept in this art. Now, how much of that is based on fact and how much of that is based on legend, I have no way of knowing. But you will hear people that practice what we are going to be learning referring to this as the Pauline art. I don't use that term as much. I call it angelic magic, but just so that you know what that term is, when you hear of somebody talking about the Pauline art, they may be dealing with something similar to what we're dealing with. There are many different variations of these systems, and I don't agree with a lot of them just because it's different than the way I was taught. I try to stay really pure with the way I understand things to be, but that doesn't mean that I think that what they're doing is wrong. But if you may find that other people that do something similar will write, and they'll be doing it in a different way. And my recommendation is to kind of stick with the way that I'm giving it to you now, and branch out later if you feel so inclined. But I wouldn't mess with it too much unless you know what you're doing. I would take one system, especially a system like this. It's very specialized. Angelic magic is actually a system of practical magic. So even though what we're dealing with is very celestial energy, it's also, we're dealing with it in a way that we can actually help ourselves here on Earth. So you can do angelic magic for what some people might consider to be very mundane things. Because again, all true Hermetic magicians understand that there's no division between thaumaturgy and theurgy, that we need both. We need both practical magic and spiritual growth. And that the reason why we have problems, and the reason why we have goals, and the reason why we have challenges in life is so that we can overcome them and learn through them and grow spiritually. So your desire to have a better job isn't something separate and distinct from your spiritual growth. They are one and the same. They are together. They're one. They are on a very important part of the same continuum. So remember that angelic magic is very spiritually uplifting, but it's also extremely practical. Even though sometimes it may seem a little technical at first, once you get over the hump, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that hard. It's actually fairly simple. And if it seems too complicated at first, it's just because it's new to you. Okay? So it's really not. It's not like we're not like doing the Golden Dawn and all that stuff. It's not crazy difficult stuff. So, like I said, the tradition states that there is a single Godhead, which is God and Goddess. It is Mother, Father. It's not a patriarchal system at all. But the single Godhead means that there is one, that there is the one, and that this unknowable creative principle actually subdivided itself into multiple levels of angelic forces, and that in our universe, each planet has its own ruling angel. based on those different rays of light from the Godhead. So the Godhead in the Hebrew tradition is the Tetragrammaton, which technically really means I am. That's really what that comes. That if you look in the Bible, God is not a man. God is the concept of I am. God is the concept of isness, and it's both male and female, and it's also neither. It's beyond conception, and in the angelic realms, they are called messengers of God, and they're called teachers of God, meaning that they are specialized parts of the I am, just as are you, and just as am I, and just as is your dog, and just as is your rose bush. Everything is, all right? And we will find out later that each angel of our solar system was, according to tradition, responsible for its own realm of creation. For instance, Gabriel is responsible for all the archetype of dog, from wolf to chihuahua, whereas Michael is responsible for everything that is feline, from the lion to the tiger to your pussycat at home. So everything is correspondent, and that the angelic realm is the creative principle of many different aspects. Now, when we are talking about that, we're also talking about the fact that we, as sentient, free-thinking human beings, still are. The reason why we're different than the animal kingdom is not because we're better. It's because we have self-awareness, or the ability for self-awareness, and that self-awareness begins to bring us away from pure instinct. So all the animal kingdom is completely under the protection and the guidance of that angelic ray, meaning that all of those instinctive actions and ways of being and operating in the world are 100% connected to the angelic ray that they are a part of. Whereas we have the choice of much of our lives. And the higher we are in our evolution, the less compulsive we are based on our astrological influences. So the idea of becoming more and more evolved is we are actually less compelled by our signs and our planets and our astrological signs. And therefore, we are able to consciously connect with the angelic ray that is already part of our psychic makeup. And that conscious connection gives us a different perspective. It gives us a different set of powers than what the animal kingdoms have. But if you think about that gives you a little insight into where animal medicine comes from, because the animals represent the oversoul of whatever that animal is, of the angel that is in the creative principle that rules it. Also, it gives you an insight into some of the ancient Egyptian religions. When you see these god forms with animal heads, right? It shows you that they are wearing the animal totem mask of that which they rule, because they are representatives of those same angelic beings, etc. All right, so it shows you that all religions, and the pagan religions, seem to understand the angelic concepts better than a lot of the current patriarchal religions, because we haven't been told we can't do it. All right, so in our the old, especially medieval magic, dealt with 7 archangels, because we were a geocentric astrological system that saw that we had 7 planets, including the sun and the moon. And that was before we knew anything about the outer planets. So those 7 planets are where we get our 7 days of the week, as most of you know, etc. And those are still important, and that they are the basis of what we are going to be dealing with. Now, there are angels that rule the outer planets. And the one that rules Uranus is the one that we add to the angelic magic, and that is the Archangel Uriel. And we're going to go through each of them in a moment. The other two, the angels that rule Neptune and Pluto, whether or not you believe Pluto belongs in our solar system, we do not work with them in this class. They are very difficult to deal with. Those two angels are very difficult to deal with. So that's why you're going to see that we have dual rulerships, like we do in the old days, with every sign except for Aquarius. And then let's just go through them in a second. We'll get right back to that in a second. So, like I said before, the universe is linked from the Godhead into the most densest of matter, and there is a constant continuum. We are taught by angelic tradition and by most pagan tradition that every human being, as they are progressing into more and more of their self-awareness, is reborn and reincarnated to come under the different angel rulerships time and time again until they reach a level of adepthood or enlightenment or perfection, whatever you want to call it, so that they are then able to become teaching angels in their own right. And the angelic tradition states that as new stars are born, the angels are actually evolved souls. They're not something. They're not. There's not necessarily a place where creation started and evolution stopped. That all is happening at once. It's happening in two directions, and it always has been. And that's one of the mysteries of the universe that nobody will ever know, because we understand things in linear time here, but in the angelic world and in the celestial world, things are happening all at once. There is no linear time. So evolution and creation are happening simultaneously. And we don't need to go too much into that, because that's just too much philosophy for what we're here to deal with. We're going to be doing a lot more practical magic than that. But just to say that the basic belief system is that all life is evolving from the lesser to the greater, and that humans are instructed or can be instructed by their planetary angels to be born under each angel through reincarnations until they're able to evolve into the angelic realms themselves. You don't need to buy that. You don't need to believe that. I'm just telling you that is a very prominent tradition in what we're dealing with. Okay, and you can put that one on hold if that doesn't sit well with your thought system, your belief system, and maybe one day it will make sense in its own way for you as you work with this material. And you don't have to believe anything I tell you, because I'm just giving you the tradition. That's all I'm here to do, is give you the tradition and tell you how I work. Okay, so like I said before, that until human beings are evolved into a state where they are able to accept their own free will, they, like animals, are under absolute rulership of the planets. But with the attainment of free will, humans are able to start thinking more and more for themselves, and they are less and less bound by the planets. And therefore, they are making their contact on a conscious level, which is a very different relationship with the angelic world when you're doing it consciously versus being compelled and ruled by instinct. Okay, most religions have a story of humans misusing their power of free will and falling into materialism, such as the Garden of Eden story. And this is an allegory of just the concept of the pure spirituality moving into dense materialism, and then coming back into pure spirituality, becoming more as a result of it than what it was when it started. And whether you like myths and things like that, that's up to you. But myths should just be teaching stories. They are not historic fact necessarily. So the idea of those different kinds of things, like the fallen angels, which we can get into a little bit more later, from an angelic tradition, the fallen angels are not evil angels. They are actually angels which fell into materialism in order to help human beings, similar to the myth of Prometheus stealing the fire in order to help. And that the whole idea of the war in heaven is in almost all religions, the Titans versus the Olympians, etc. And that is a teaching story to try to depict the struggle that divinity has as it moves into materialism, and how it needs to become more divine again. And that cycle of becoming is what that is trying to depict in one way or another. The more evolved the mind, the tradition states, the more the teaching angels can actually impart their secrets. So what this says to us is that that all of what we're learning in this tradition is not to replace your spiritual practice. Because like I said, what we're not doing in this class is I'm not giving you meditation exercises. I'm not giving you concentration exercises. I'm not giving you visualization exercises. I'm not giving you aura cleansing. There's not any real orb of light, any of that stuff like you're used to getting from me. But that doesn't mean that you need to stop doing that. Because the more evolved you can be, the more acute your abilities are, the easier it is for you to make these kinds of contacts and communications. So the ideas in these religions are depicting what we're working with here. The ideas of human beings that were farther ahead in knowledge, and who became spiritual leaders and priests and priestesses, avatars, things like that. Those are all, again, stories trying to show us that there is a continuum of evolution in the human condition, and that the idea of us becoming more evolved is not to just kind of split and say, okay, I hope you guys can figure it out. that the traditions always stated that then it becomes our job to help teach and instruct and to get everybody on the right track. So the more you learn, the more you serve is basically what that states. And it's not about necessarily beating people over the head with your new belief system about angels either. I mean, nobody ever has to know that we're talking about this, but as you become more adept, then the necessity for you to be of service to those that are less fortunate becomes more acute. And that's very, very common in this type of work, that belief system. Over time, all the different angelic lore and magic has been preserved in various different forms, and we are, like I said, we are learning a very specific type of angel magic, and it's the one that is that I believe, for me, that works very well and is the purest form that I know of. But I'm not saying our angel magic is better than everybody else's. It's just what I found works best for me, and I hope that you agree for yourself. And I'm just here to teach what I know. I'm not making any of this up. I'm not an adept, but I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm just here to give you what I know. Okay, so angels are often called gods and goddesses in other pantheons. So that's okay. And you will notice as you move along that you can that it will be easier for you to understand how the gods and goddesses and the angels are related. But for now, let's keep it pure in this system. Let's go ahead and keep it pure to the system itself, and you can mess with it later after you become adept at it. Okay? Now, the other thing that I want to be clear on is that the angels do not have a gender as we understand it, but they can present themselves in different forms and in different genders according to what is necessary for you when you are working with them. For instance, Gabriel, as the angel of the moon, very commonly will come as a moon goddess, a feminine archetype. Anael, the angel of Venus, very often will become as a feminine form, a goddess type form. But it's not. But that doesn't mean it has to be that way. Gabriel can come as a male or a genderless, or it can be a dual, two people as one. I mean, it will appear to you as it needs to appear to you. These different energies, because they are beyond. They are beyond our concept of gender. All right. Any questions so far before we get into the actual nitty-gritty of what we're working with? You still have no sound. Larry, you still have no sound? Oh, dear. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe start your disconnect and start again. That's usually what a lot of people have to do. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Each one of these platforms has its own strengths and weaknesses, and we haven't found a perfect one yet. Oh, good. I'm glad. Okay, so that worked. All right, so let's look at what we're working with this first week. We're working with your birth angel. Okay, so you want to work out your birth angels. So you need to know what your sun sign is, your natal sun sign is, and your natal moon sign. If you don't know what that is, you need to figure it out. Most of us know what our sun sign is, but we need to know the moon sign for this week. So if you have never had your chart done, you need to get it done, and you can get it done for free online. And if you look in your handout, I give you one place that you can get it done within like an instant. It takes an instant.